If you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. Most people have no idea what that's actually talking about. Further than that, the verse that you'll hear often whenever people are trying to claim lies that Jesus is a pacifist, they'll say that if someone slaps your cheek, turn to them the other also. Again, not knowing the context and not knowing the actual verbiage. So today we're going to address those and we're going to talk about whether or not Jesus was a pacifist. To save you time, Jesus was not a pacifist, and if you think he was, then you have a false Jesus. If you were to live by the sword, to give you a more modern example of that, that is going to be a case of someone who makes their living by committing armed robbery. So if someone were to take a modern day sword or a happy thing and use it in an unhappy way in order to threaten you, in order to get you to give them money or some kind of a valuable possession that they are then going to exchange for money, whatever, they're going to be threatening you. They're going to be stealing from you, extorting from you. They're going to be committing crimes, both morally and legally. And they are doing this by means of the sword, by threatening. So whenever people say that Islam grew by the sword, that's what it means. Islam grew by threatening people. Islam grew with violence. And so in this kind of case, that guy who is going to be threatening violence, that guy who is going to be making money with violence, he is living by the sword. And so those who live by the sword will die by the sword. What does that mean? To put that into a further context, is that one day, that guy who is threatening people like that, he is going to end up coming against someone like me, for example, who is always carrying a happy thing, who is very fast at deploying that happy thing, who is very accurate at using that happy thing. And so that guy who's been living by the happy thing, upon threatening the wrong person, he is going to die by the sword. So in Luke 22, Jesus tells his disciples, if you do not have a sword, sell your cloak to buy one. He's giving them specific information about supplies that they will need, literal supplies. Then following that, the disciples say, look, we have 2 swords. And Jesus says that's enough. So what that means is that Jesus was talking about literal swords that his disciples literally had. The people who deny that haven't read the Bible, haven't read that at all. We are commanded to have the most effective tools of defending ourselves. So obviously I'm speaking as an American living in a free country. And if you live in a country that gave up your freedoms, then you're not going to be able to have happy things, which means you're going to have moderately joyful things. Have whatever it takes. So something as simple as like, hey, you live in like the UK where you can't even carry a blade, carry a fork, carry a spoon, carry a metal pen, carry anything that's going to give you an advantage. So for example, like this is a plastic pen, okay? But in the event of me needing to defend myself, just having something that's going to be hard and pokey that you can stick into certain pressure points on people's body to just inflict pain on them in order to get them off of you is going to be beneficial. Or in a more extreme case, this is not going to do very much, but that is going to be enough to cause a lot of damage, enough to get them to get off of you. So whenever Jesus is using a sword as the example, that was the best tool that they had at the time to defend themselves. And today, depending on your country, it's going to differ. So get whatever the best tool is that you can in order to defend yourself. Even if that's an aluminum bat. Have something to be able to even the odds, an equalizer. Now, when Jesus said that if someone slaps you on your right cheek, turn to them the other also. I want you to think about that. In a world that's predominantly right-handed, if I were to take my right hand and I were to slap you, what side of your face did this just go across? It's your left side. Left, left, left. How would it possibly go to the right side, the side Jesus specifically talks about? Like that. That was metaphorical. That was not him talking exclusively to his disciples, telling them the supplies that they needed. That was him preaching. And whenever Jesus preached to the public, he spoke exclusively in parables, in metaphors. So that's one of them, that if someone were to backhand you, that is an insult. So if someone insults you, open it up. Let them insult you. That's what Jesus was saying. The sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. That kind of thing. That's what we need to get back to. Jesus at no point ever said that if someone is harming you, to let them harm you. That kind of disgusting pacifism is absolutely not the Jesus of the Bible. That is a fake hippie Jesus that a lot of people today have a really gross depiction of. You need to repent of that and get rid of it, because Jesus was not, is not, and never will be a pacifist. Jesus is the God of the Old Testament who flooded the entire world and unalived every single person except for Noah and his family. Jesus is Yahweh, the eternal holy God, the one who went through in the book of Joshua as the angel of the Lord and unalived tons of people. The one that we've talked about with the event of Balaam and the talking donkey that told Balaam that if the donkey didn't swerve off the path, that Jesus would have already struck him down with the sword he was carrying. Jesus is the same one who went into the temple with a whip and drove people out. Now, there's a lot of those dumb pacifistic people out there who are trying to claim like, oh, well, he just whipped it in the air. No, he didn't. Jesus used the whip when he was flipping tables. Jesus was not a pacifist. Jesus laid down his life as the sacrificial lamb because that was the necessary thing to do. That's why he stopped his disciples from defending him, specifically whenever Peter used his sword inappropriately, improperly, and cut off the ear of one of the soldiers. Jesus then picks up the ear, puts it back on his head, it heals him instantly, and then Peter says, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. See, he was using the sword improperly. He was trying to defend someone whose singular purpose was to die as a sacrifice. You cannot defend that person that is exclusively there to die. They needed the swords to defend themselves from the later persecution that they were going to face. They did not need the swords to protect Jesus. But if you look right there, it's a literal sword once again that they had that Jesus commanded them to have. So in regards to self-defense, when people are trying to claim that like Romans 12 is saying like do not repay evil with evil, it is not repaying evil with evil to prevent evil by doing good. If someone is trying to commit mukdak and you unalive them, stopping them from committing that act of evil, what you did is a good and righteous thing in the eyes of God. It stopped someone who was trying to do something evil in the eyes of God. There's so many people that just don't understand the distinction. That's why I did the entire video that came out yesterday about what the sixth commandment is. That it's talking about ratsak. It's talking about the unjustified evil unaliving of a person. That's very different than unaliving. Mukdak, or red rum as people started calling it, is very, very different than unaliving. In Exodus 22, it literally gives us the example of if someone is breaking into your house at night and you unalive them, there is no crime committed because you defended your family. You did good. But it talks about if someone is breaking into your house during the day and you unalive them, then it's bad. And so some people don't understand that at all. So let me put it into a modern context because it's the exact same as it was back then, but we have more modern devices, so I'll talk about those. If someone breaks into your house during the day, chances are you are not home, which means that they were breaking into your house to steal. But if someone breaks into your house at night, that's because they want to hurt you. That applies today, always, literally 100% of the time. If someone is breaking into your house when you're not home, it's because they want your stuff. If someone is breaking into your house when you're home, it's because they want to hurt you. Period. That's how it always works. The God of the Bible is okay with self-defense, and not just okay with it, but he encourages it and says it's a good thing. Jesus is not, was not, and never will be a pacifist. And if you think he was in any way, you do not understand the God of the Bible. You need to repent, you need to read the Bible, and trust in the real Jesus. I hope this made sense. Let me know what's next. Go support me on Patreon, buy my books, link trees in bio. God bless.